Hi everybody, Ryan Grant here and welcome back to the YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be walking you guys through how to gain your first kilos in 30 days, right? Within the next month, if you are struggling right now and you simply just cannot put on weight for some whatever reason, you're in the gym and you're eating, but you're not gaining weight, this is how you are going to gain your first kilos in 30 days. But before we get into these really simple steps, because it is a lot more simple than you think, I'd like to introduce myself if you are new to the channel. So my name is Ryan, I'm 20 years old, and over the past 4 years I've completely transformed myself through the gym, gaining over 27 kilos as you can see here, and I'm on a mission to help men do the exact same thing. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So it's literally just 3 steps, right? That's all it is to gain your first kilos in 30 days. So step 1, we need to identify your surplus and your workout plan. Right, we need to identify your surplus because that is your fuel, and we need to identify the workout plan because that is how you're going to get the car. Right, diet is like the fuel to the car. The fuel is the diet, the car, the workout plan, and going to the gym is the car. Right, the better we can get your fuel, if we actually eat right and we fuel your body right, the further the car can go, aka the more you're going to be able to progress and the better you're going to be able to be in the next 30 days. So in order to find out your calorie surplus, I've left a link in the description. Basically takes you to a calorie calculator. What you need to do is put in your age, your weight, your height, I think, your activity level, and then you press calculate. I have a little thing up here that helps visuals, and then the numbers you see on the screen right now are not the numbers we want because they are the numbers to lose weight, right? However, what I want you to do right now is write down the maintain weight number because we're going to need that for step 2, right? So write down the maintain weight before you carry on with what I'm about to say. Now you've done that, what I want you to do is press where it says show info for weight gain, right? And the number of calories and the amount of calories it says next to 0.5 kilo gain a week, that is the amount of calories you are going to now be eating. That is your calorie surplus, right? That is how you're going to gain your first kilos in 30 days. So now we've identified your calorie surplus, and do not worry if you don't have a big appetite and if you're not a big eater and that number sort of intimidates you, because step 2 is going to help you work up to that number, right? So the part number 2 of step 1 is your workout plan. So we obviously need a plan because if you don't, then you're going to get into the gym and you're going to go with the flow of it, and that is not what you want to do because you're going to be confused, lost. Going with the flow of it doesn't allow you to mentally lock in, right? And that is something that's really important to having good workout sessions. And we perform workouts and we have gym sessions to grow muscle, so we need to make sure they're good, right? And we obviously need to make sure we have stuff to progress because all muscle growth is an adaptation process. And if you don't if you're not consistent with what you're doing and increasing the difficulty of that consistently, then you're not necessarily going to give your muscles something to adapt to, right? It's like if you're changing exercises every week and you're changing workout programs every week, it's like trying to learn a new hobby every week, right? One week you want to learn Spanish because Spain won the Euros in 2024, for example. I don't know. And then next week you wanted to learn Japanese because you saw a video on Japanese culture and you got swayed. And then you want to learn French because one of your mates says he started to learn and he thinks it's cool. So you then start to learn French the next week. And then you start to learn piano and then chess and then badminton. If you're not giving these things enough time, then you're not going to see the results. And it's the same thing with a workout plan. If you don't give it time, then you're not going to be able to give your muscles the time to adapt to that, right? So we need to have a consistent workout plan. And what I would highly recommend for you right now is to start going to the gym only 3 or 4 times a week at the absolute maximum, right? And there are 3 workout splits I'd highly recommend you follow because we want to keep things as simple and as easy to follow as possible. So the first workout split that you can follow is push, pull, legs. And if you don't necessarily know what this is, push day basically means you work your chest, your triceps and your shoulders on day 1. And then on day 2, you work your back and your biceps. And then on day 3, you work your legs. So your quads, your calves, and your hamstrings. And you do this ideally, I'd recommend push day on Monday, pull day on Wednesday, leg day on Friday, which is a perfect balance throughout the week, and that is going to get you, you know, set in the right direction perfectly, right? The second split I'd recommend you could do is upper lower, which basically consists of you do upper day, so you train your upper body, and then you train your lower day, so you do your quads, your calves, your hamstrings, and then you rest for a day, and then you do upper body again, and then you do lower body again. So what I'd recommend if you do that is go Monday, Tuesday, and then rest on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday, and that is perfect. And another 3-day split, and the final one I'd actually recommend for you guys as well, is Arnold split. So I've personally never done Arnold split, just to put it out there. However, I know so many people that have done it, and you know, it doesn't really matter what split you do because your muscle doesn't know that, and the most important thing for muscle growth is actually stimulating it properly and consistently, and that's what a workout plan provides, right? So it's sort of subjective which one you want to do, but Arnold split basically just consists of day one you do chest and you do back, day two you do arms, so biceps and triceps and your shoulders, and then day three is legs, so your quads, your calves, and your hamstrings, right? And if you want a workout program written by me for someone in your situation, I have a free community down below in the link in your top link in the description, and the workout program in there is a push-pull legs workout program, the first split that I just recommended you guys, and there is a whole lot more to that community as well, and there's been some good feedback on the workout program. So if you want to go check that out, then I highly recommend that. That is a really, really good workout program to start with. So that's step one, right? We've identified your surplus, so how much you need to eat to gain muscle and weight, and we've identified your workout plan, so how you're going to execute the muscle stimulation, right? Which is obviously how we grow muscle, right? So that's step 1 out of 3. Just like that, done, right? That's step 1 out of 3. We're a third of the way there. We're 33.33% there, right? So now moving on to step 2, and this is the training phase, right? I like to call this phase the training phase, where you're at the very start and you need to slowly build yourself up into routine, right? What so many beginners do wrong is they go straight into things. They deep dive headfirst into things, right? However, you know, and this can basically mean they go from not eating much to eating in a calorie surplus and stuffing their face and eating 200 grams of protein every day, and, you know, training intense on their workout program all the time, right? And doing that straight away. However, by going straight into the routine without without training your body up to do that sustainably, that's just going to get you moving 2 steps forward and 3 steps back every single time, right? And that is not what we want to do, because eventually we'll be in negative numbers. However, we want to keep progressing up the ladder. We don't want to regress for, you know, when we're trying to skip steps, right? So this training phase consists of 3 different things, and this training phase lasts for 2 to 3 weeks, right? So step 1 is you want to eat at your maintenance calories. Step 2 is you want to start eating your meals at the same time every day. And step 3 is you just want to find your feet with the workout plan. So let's go back to step 1, shall we? So maintenance calories. If you don't necessarily know what your maintenance calories is, it's the number you just written down on the piece of paper, right? So maintenance calories refers to the number of calories one needs to eat every day to stay at the exact same weight. The reason why we're not eating in a calorie surplus yet is because we need to train our body to have the ability to slowly start to stomach more and more food, right? As I said, if we start eating in a surplus straight away, then you're going to go 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And let me just ask you a question, right? So this is your maintenance calories and this is your calorie surplus. Why on earth would you start eating this before you've even got consistent at this? It simply doesn't make sense, right? It's like trying to jump to step 10 on the ladder straight away, and the likelihood of you falling back down and hurting yourself is very high. However, if you just climb up the ladder step by step, then you'll get to step 10 on the ladder very, very easily and smoothly. And that is exactly what we're doing here. We're going step by step, and that is how you do this for the long run, right? So the first aspect of this training phase that you will need to start doing is eating at your maintenance calories. So don't worry about your surplus yet. Just eat the amount that I told you to write down on the piece of paper, right? And what I want you to do with this as well is just slowly start to increase your protein intake, right? As obviously protein is the most important macronutrient on the muscle ladder for muscle growth, right? So just slowly start to increase your protein as you go, right? Get a protein shake in there, or add another egg in there, or add another chicken breast in there, for example, right? Eat at maintenance calories and slowly increase the protein. That is step one of the training phase, right? Aspect number two of the training phase is starting to eat your meals at the same times every day. The benefit of eating at the same times every day is it allows us to work with our body, and that is because we as humans have a hormone called ghrelin, right? And if you don't know what this hormone is, it basically just refers to the hormone that sends a message to our brain to therefore stimulate our appetite, therefore we're hungry to eat, right? So in order to actually make these feelings of hunger consistent so it's easier for us to eat, we start eating throughout this training phase at the same times every day. So for example, if Sam started to eat dinner at 5 p.m. every day, then this hormone and our body is going to start to pick up on that, and it's going to be like, our conscious self is starting to eat at 5 p.m. every day. So now let's start to stimulate the appetite at 5 p.m. every day. Therefore, this just makes eating food so much easier. So when you make that transfer from eating at your maintenance calories to eating in your calorie surplus, your body and your conscious self is already going to be in sync. So it's going to be so much easier to stomach more food, as you're going to have an appetite and feel hungry at the right times, right? So in order to sort of identify your meal timings here, what you want to do is just look at your non-negotiables throughout the day. So when do you work, when do you spend time with your family that you can't move around, right? And another thing as well, organize a set time to go to the gym. And it's the exact same thing, right? If we eat at the same times every day, we're going to be better at eating. And if we start to work out at the same time every day, our body's going to start to naturally prime itself for that activity. Therefore, we're going to have better sessions, right? And the reason why we want to have the same workout times in this situation is because we can then set a pre-workout meal time and a post-workout meal time. Therefore, we're going to be, maximally optimizing our sessions and fueling ourselves for the session to the best ability we possibly can, right? So they're the first two steps. Start eating at your maintenance calories and slowly increase your protein intake with your meals. And with your meals, you want to start eating at the same times every day, right? And that's just going to help you get in sync with your body. Your body's going to start to recognize your patterns, therefore it can start to work in accordance and stimulate appetite at the same time, right? So that is 2 out of 3 of the training phase. Now moving on to 3 out of 3, the final step. You want to start to find your feet with the workout and start with the basics, right? So many beginners get it wrong and they start thinking about how much weight they can put on the bench press bar, right? However, we want to grow muscle, not ego around here, and we want to build good habits, sustainable habits for the long term, which is going to allow us to be in this game for the long term. So what I mean by finding your feet with the workout, is focusing on form and technique and having them as priority, right? Starting to learn the patterns of the movements, right? How does bench press feel? How should my muscle feel, right? Look at focusing on these things, right? When you're doing bicep curls, notice how your biceps feel, right? Notice, just start to work on the form and start to work on that connection between your mind and your muscle, because the better the mind muscle connection you have, aka the more you can just focus on that muscle during the exercise, the better results you're going to get, right? So the number one thing for muscle growth, whether you're day one of the gym or 10 years in the gym, is your ability to perform an exercise to the best that you possibly can, and slowly increasing the weight. However, we don't want to focus on the weight yet because we need to get the technique in order first so we can eventually increase the weight fairly, right? So what I mean by finding your feet with a workout is if you're doing bench press or if you're doing leg press in your workout, or if you're on the workout program below and you're doing incline dumbbell press on the first day, then you just want to focus on the form, how the exercise feels, and just look at your muscle stretching and contracting, right? Just focus on those things. The little things go the furthest in the long term, right? So that is step 2, right? That is the training phase. So you want to start eating at maintenance calories and slowly increase your protein intake. So, you know, add a protein shake there, or a chicken breast there, or an egg there, etc. Step number 2 of the training phase: eat at the same times every day. This is going to allow you to get in sync with your body, and your body's going to start to work in accordance to your actions, therefore make things a whole lot easier. Step number 3: finding the feat with a workout. So not necessarily focusing on increasing the weight yet, however, just focusing on how the exercise is actually performed, and you know, starting to just look at, you know, how it feels like, how it feels to do the exercise, and how the muscle feels when it's contracting and stretching, right? For example, don't focus on putting as much weight as you can on the bench press yet. Solely just focus on, you know, slow on the way down, right? Explosive on the way up. Starting to identify and notice how the chest feels, right? Just start to mentally note that down, right? And how this exercise should feel, right? Not only is this going to prevent us creating bad habits, which can risk injury in the long term, however, this is just going to set us up for inevitable success, right? Or when you're doing bicep curls, don't focus on looking at how much weight you can possibly do, at a maximum, right? Just focus on keeping your elbow as close to your body as possible, right? Not moving it at all, and just curling up and squeezing at the top, and then going slow on the way back down, because that is how you grow muscle, right? Obviously, we're going to increase the weight, and I'm going to touch on that in a second. However, the most important thing now is the basics, and the better your ability to master the basics, the stronger the foundation you have, therefore the more sustainability you're going to have in the long term, and the more progression you're going to make. Okay, so that is step 2 out of 3. So now we've got your surplus, and we've got your workout program in step 1. You now know what to do for the first 2 to 3 weeks of your gym career, I guess, or your gym journey. So the training phase, so eating at maintenance calories, starting to eat at the same times every day, and getting those meals down, and finding your feet with a workout, not focusing on the weight but more the technique and the form. The final step out of the 3 is just execution of what we did in step 1, so the surplus and the workout program, and starting to actually progress these things, right? Slowly just starting to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, because where discomfort lies, growth also lies. So by now, after you've done this step 2, and after you've done the training phase for 2 to 3 weeks, your appetite is going to be, you're going to be able to stomach a lot more food. You're going to be really consistent, so your appetite is going to be in line with when you eat your meals, and you are starting to get an idea of the basic exercise techniques and how things work in the gym. So now number 3 is basically just staying consistent, and slowly just increasing the difficulty of what you're doing, and obviously eating in that calorie surplus every single day, right? Don't be intimidated, because as I said, this training phase is going to eliminate that intimidation for you. So I've got 4 main tips for you guys right here in order to stay consistent with eating in a calorie surplus, and slowly increasing the difficulty of your workout plans, and actually making gains in the gym, right? So step 1 to being consistent is keeping your meals as simple as you can, and keeping your workout program the same, right? As I said at the beginning of the video, if you look at constantly changing your workout plan, that's like trying to learn a different hobby every single week. You're not giving it enough time, therefore you're not going to get good at it, therefore your muscle can't adapt to anything, because you're constantly changing, right? So you're inevitably just not going to grow. So if you haven't given your workout program, I would say at least 8 to 10 weeks consistently. Yes, you can change an exercise here and there. However, if you don't give your workout program as a whole 8 to 10 weeks, at least in my opinion, then you've got to keep it constant, right? Because how are you going to know whether that's worked if you don't give it enough time to give you feedback, right? So that's that with a workout program. You want to keep things as constant as possible. And as I said, if you don't like an exercise, by all means change it. However, just don't change the macro, and you can work on the micro in between, right? So the second thing, as I just said, is you want to keep your meals as simple as possible, right? So why would you cook meals with 1,000 ingredients that take an hour to cook, in comparison to cooking a meal that takes 10 minutes and that is just as efficient, right? So I'll give you guys a really good example of a really simple and efficient meal for bulking. So when I was at the height of my bulk, after I did this training phase and after I built my appetite up and my ability to stomach more food up, right? A really good meal that I had that really helped me is 6 eggs with 2 bagels, half an avocado, and some smoked salmon and cheese mixed in with the eggs, and an orange juice on the side, and that added up to around 1,100, 1,200 calories. And just like that, in a meal that took me 10 minutes to cook, I had a third of my intake right there and then. So, you want to keep things as simple as possible and keep things constant, right? Step number 2 to staying consistent is sleeping at the same time. Not only does sleeping increase our quality of life, our mental well-being, our physical, mental health, but it also improves our hormone balance, right? Which is our testosterone and growth hormone, for example, which helps us, if they're optimized and balanced, then that's going to help us, our ability to recover quicker. Therefore, we're going to be able to grow muscle more efficiently, train harder when we need to, and in turn just grow muscle. And most importantly, what good sleep does is improve our digestive health. Therefore, it's going to be a lot easier to eat in a calorie surplus, as our digestive system is going to be operating a lot more optimally compared to when you have bad sleep. And the number one most important thing to getting good sleep is sleeping at the same time. And obviously making sure you're getting anywhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a day. So that's step 2 to being consistent with all of this. Step number 3, that's 2. 3, spread out your meals, right? I haven't really got too much to say for this one, but would you rather have 2,000 calories to eat at 8 p.m. or would you rather have 500 calories to eat at 8 p.m., right? In order to be in a surplus. We know which one is easier, right? So making sure you spread out your meal times, gives your body to more time to digest more food. Therefore, it's going to be easier to eat more food. And secondly, helps keep your body, replenished throughout the day, which is really important. So that's the third thing. Now onto the final thing is don't take things too seriously and have a cheat meal once or twice a week, right? It's so important not taking things too seriously as a beginner because of one thing called paradoxical intentions. This psychological phenomenon basically just refers to when you try to focus on something so much, the opposite inevitably happens. And in this situation, if you try and take things too seriously as a beginner, you will inevitably end up quitting. And the reason I know this, and the reason this paradoxical intention concept is true, is because as we're trying to grow physically and change, our body's not going to like that because the natural human tendency is homeostasis, aka to stay the same. So the minute it realizes that we're trying to change and we're putting ourselves through discomfort because discomfort is where growth lies, the natural human tendency is to, try and stay comfortable and try and stay the same as much as possible. So we're going to start feeling resistance towards these things. So we're going to start to feel resistance towards eating in a calorie surplus, working out when we need to. Therefore, if you take things too seriously, you're going to let this resistance get over you. In comparison to, if you just saw the gym as like, nah, it's just something I normally do now. It feels weird to not go to the gym, right? If you adopt that mindset and you don't take it too seriously and you actually have fun with it, that is going to get you a lot further, right? So they're my 4 main tips for consistency for, step number 3 and executing this process, right? So if you follow those steps step by step, then I am 100% guaranteeing you that you will gain your first kilos within the next 30 days. So if you are still here, thank you very much. And as a thank you, I would love it if I can invite you to my free community that I mentioned briefly throughout this video, where I am helping 200 plus men right now beyond these YouTube videos, teaching them the fundamentals to efficient muscle gain and weight gain. And I would absolutely love to help you do the exact same thing. So if you're interested and you want my help beyond these YouTube videos, then it's going to be one of the top links in the description. You'll be able to find it. It won't be that hard. But if you don't want to, if you don't want my help personally, then that's no problem. But if you did enjoy this video and you think it will help you, then make sure you drop a like, drop a comment, keep me updated on your progress as well for the next 30 days if you actually do this seriously. And if you want to stay around, then I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, so a subscription would go a long way. So hit that little red button there. However, I don't want to bore you anymore because that's all I've got to say. Have a good day, have a good training session if you're training, and get on with this training phase. I'll see you later.